Hey everybody, it is about 11:20 and this was posted about 16 hours, 51 minutes ago, almost 17 hours ago, if you will. And basically the title of this entry from, well, I'm not going to say their name, we'll just call them V-295. You might know who that is, but it's just V-295. But they posted this about 16 hours, 51 minutes ago. And basically the title of their little opinion, and again, anything I read off here is opinion, is as strong as the plot demands. And this is what they have to say, and I quote, "Because it's been too long since I've done a entry in the early hours of the morning when I'm tired and therefore pissed off and in need of writing. Here's me talking about Mecha Sally being crap again. It's basically more a detailed look at something I covered in My Problem with Flynn's Writing. Okay, so Mecha Sally was, as we all know, So Mecha Sally was, as we all know and have complained about, cut open, gutted, and filled with rarely used weapons that probably only weigh her down and make her less efficient in combat, along with riddling her new armor with doors for each weapon to poke out of, which will make it much less useful, and cutting half of her brain out, rendering her much less of a technician, and giving her the planning skills of Leroy Jenkins. In other words, turning her into a mediocre redux of Mechasonic." Okay, first of all, to this V-295, and I think anybody would agree with me on this, we don't know and cannot confirm that she was gutted. We cannot confirm she was cut open. We cannot confirm that her brain was cut, half her brain was cut off. We cannot confirm that. That's only speculation. It's only speculation, and people have a right to speculate if that's how they feel. But me personally, I don't think that happened. I think, honestly, still, that Eggman, if you want to do a behind-the-scenes or off-panel situation, I believe Eggman welded the armor on her and perhaps added the lasers into her head. You can't say otherwise, unless you have proof. Now, I don't have proof he did it either, but I'm pretty sure that's a more logical reason. But again, that's just my opinion, as it is V-295's and anybody else's. Okay, so where was it? Alright. To continue on, and I quote, V-295. "To add to this, whereas the power core of a Robian has been to run for nearly 2 decades and counting by Jules, Sonic's father, her power core was replaced with a ring that burned out in a week and offlined her in the middle of a battle, and she was only saved by the early derailment of Ken Khan from a Knight Templar into a Prince Charming. Just to ram home how much this weaponizing plot point sucks, look at our group's current avatar. You can clearly see that Mecha Sally's optic sensors, or her eyes for those who aren't complete nerds, are open and lit up, indicating that she was conscious throughout the whole ordeal, and has been the case since robotization was introduced in 1993, would have felt her body being carved up. You know, for kids." Okay, first of all, again, we don't know if she was carved up. Second of all, we don't know if Eggman may have just shut her down. It may have looked like she was online, But usually when Eggman modifies any kind of bot, he usually shuts them down and then turns them back on. So we cannot say she was on at that time. We only speculate. And again, people have a right to do that. Continuing on. Anyway, Mecha Sally is turned from a crappy-looking, over-detailed skeletal robot into a much smoother, more streamlined robo-zombie. Let's be honest. If you cut half of someone's brain, or if you cut out half of someone's brain, empty their chest cavity, and fill them with guns, and they're still walking, they're a zombie. Again, we don't know any of that. You can only speculate, and again, people have a right to. But we don't know if that's true or not. You don't have no proof. Okay. Where were we? Alright. Who has some decent bulk to her? It looks like she might actually pose a threat, rather than being a skeleton with a giant head and clown feet. In her first outing, not counting Scramble because blank, reading two blank crappy comics written by a guy whose work I can't stand. She KOs a depowered bunny and destroys the tornado and then fights Sonic to a standstill. Wow, that's already a disappointment. Bunny is, as stated, powerless, has none of her strength, and is unarmed. Whoop-dee-freaking-doo! Mecha Sally can punch out a normal Mobian that can't effectively fight back. Destroying the tornado is nothing special. It practically exists to get damaged in some way so the villains don't look too pathetic. And she fights Sonic to a standstill. The same Sonic who she easily neck lifted and threw to what would have been his death without any trouble before she was weaponized. Yeah, kind of pathetic. And then what followed made sure no one would ever take Mecha Sally seriously as a threat. Well, without brain damage, hallucinations, or a case of bus. In other words, as they call it, Flynn did it, so it must be awesome syndrome. A common illness in the fandom wherein Flynn gets praised for the exact same things the other writers were criticized for. From 236 to 239, as you are no doubt aware, they used this plot skeleton. 1. Send Mecha Sally to a random location. 2. One member of Team Sega fights her. 3. Mecha Sally is defeated easily and attempts to retreat. 4. Heroes completely fail to rescue her for no adequate explored reason. 5. 6. Profit. The only time she really could have escaped without it making no sense was in 238. With the launching Death Egg, and that was only because everybody decided to stand around and gawk at Tails fighting Mecha Sally instead of, escaping, and even then, they could have still dotted her on the head and taken her with them instead of just walking away. We're lucky that we lost issues of this to filler crap and crossovers, or 242 probably would have ended like this. Mechas would have ended like this, and they give an example like this, a little scripted example. Mecha Sally, look, a butterfly. Sonic, where? Mecha Sally, phew, exit stage left. Continuing on. But yeah, this super badass killer death machine that's supposed to be the most important villain of the arc and the main attraction spends her time getting the crap kicked out of her by her boyfriend and two 12-year-olds and running away with her tail between her legs. Wow, what a letdown. And then we get to 247. when Mecha Sally suddenly becomes Deathstroke and gains his power of handing the idiot ball to whoever he ends up fighting, to whoever who she loves. Okay, let me rephrase. Let me repeat that. And then we get to 247. When Mecha Sally suddenly becomes Deathstroke and gains his power of handing the idiot ball to whoever she ends up fighting. Seriously, she takes on all of Team Sega, as well as half of the Arctic Freedom Fighters. The other half disappear for no reason. And only fails to kill both Sonic and Amy because Silver was there too. Seriously, Irma friggin' forgets that she can bloody turn invisible and stealth KO Mecha Sally, or run into the control room and shut off the Genesis wave as well. See what I mean about handing out idiot balls? So why does Mecha Sally suck in 236 to 239, but kick everybody's butt with ease in 247? In story, I have no clue. In the case of how Ian Flynn constructed the plot, it's simple. 235 and onwards is the exciting debut of Team Sega. It is presented as Sonic's second win, end. It's another case of what happened with Scourge in 160 and 161. The characters are portrayed as unstoppable badasses because otherwise people might think they suck. Even though we've already been introduced to Sonic, Tails, and Amy, we know what they can do, and they don't need to be sold to us. Basically, Mecha Sally ends up sucking because if she was actually a decent threat, then it would make Team Fighters look bad. Never mind that the Team Fighter story is basically an example of a party completing all the side quests and constantly botching the main quest as is. Okay, so basically what V-295 is saying there is that for nearly over half a year, for a little over half a year, they're basically saying that Ian Flynn presented Sally supposedly as a threat, yet she was never utilized as a threat. But now, all of a sudden, as we get to the conclusion, she is. Well, not in defense of Ian or anybody else. Not in the defense of Ian or anybody else. But I think what Ian is trying to do, and this is just an opinion, is he's following a similar, if not familiar, pattern that is done in all kinds of media. I'm not lying here, folks. Movies, television series, novels, live-action primetime shows, you name it. You see, for a season, when you have an over-analyzed arc for running for that particular season, let's say in animation or in live action, and all of a sudden you're going to get to the finale, the antagonist that you got going for that entire season always looks like, they always basically are made to look like they're complete goofballs. In other words, they're made to look like failures. They always come up short. Yet, when you get to the finale, where basically in that story arc, for that season, where, like I said, the antagonist, the villain, is made to look weak, all of a sudden they're made to look strong. And the reason they do that is to gain your attention, is to get you vitally interested in what's going to happen. I mean, you want a good example with stuff that's Sonic related? Take a look at SatAM Season 2. For most of that season, with a few exceptions, most of that season, including the first season if you want to, Robotnik basically always failed to defeat the Freedom Fighters, defeat Sonic, and always failed to try to find out what Knothole is. In other words, failed to conquer the rest of Mobius. Yet, as we got into the final 4 episodes, especially Doomsday Project, he suddenly was succeeding.